All right. Hello, good morning. So finally, we're out. Like, I have to get this off my chest first. We're out of vacation, like the Christmas holidays. And, like, even though there's been, like, nice moments, like, having a 4-year-old is. I don't know how to put it. Like, there's this brain development happening, right? You have, like, I even had to do research on this just for comfort, because you have something called like the amygdala in your brain, and it's responsible for like identifying what's it called, not fear but danger, right? And it like triggers adrenaline in your body, your heart pounds like crazy, and you're ready to fight or flight, right? And then you have the prefrontal cortex, which is basically like impulse control. It's the thing that like filters all these like ideas popping into your head and evaluating if it's a good idea or not to actually execute on them. And when you're 4 years old, you can get into this phase where, and it depends on the child, of course, but our son, he needs a lot of predictability. He needs a lot of routines, a lot of predictability. And it comes from nothing when he's out of balance, because he seems like he's just the most adorable kid. But then suddenly we're going to do something else, and he's just not prepared for it. And he just lashes out completely. Like, it's crazy. And as modern parents, we try to like meet him on his emotions, explain to him what's happening with his emotions. It's not okay to go like physical, like hitting and kicking and all of this stuff. But like in the moment, that doesn't help, right? But we're pretty decent parents, I think, because we take the time after these outbursts to actually talk to him about what happened, why it happens, and so on and so on. But that doesn't change his brain, right? Only like time can change his brain and mature his previously referenced amygdala and prefrontal cortex. But in the moment, we also get distressed, right? So we get more like, what's the word in English? Like, we get more firm with him. Like, as I said, it doesn't have any effect to actually explain to him what's happening and make him understand. So we try to be more firm, and then it just escalates and it escalates and it escalates. So what we found is like just distracting him away from his current outbursts is what actually helps. And then we just have to wait for his brain to mature, hopefully. But this has been the theme of our holidays. It's been very stressful. And at the same time, I've been sick through the whole, like, freaking... I have a tendency to get sick when we have our holidays. And there's been not a single... Because we've had to be on him constantly, right? Or he would have his outbursts. So I haven't had, like, 1 second to, like, relax and just feel like, everything's good in the world. So I haven't been able to, like, recover. I'm still sick. But at least I feel better. Oh. Sorry, this is probably like super boring to listen to, but maybe you have like some similar experiences and it's comforting. But this project has maybe also like made things worse, because when I have my ideas, I really want to work on them. And I get very impatient, and I try to find like windows in like everyday life to actually spend some time. And I was really looking forward to this. I really liked this project going into the holidays. I had like over 2 weeks to like not constantly work on it, but like I had a window of like 2 weeks, and I should have learned by now that holidays with kids means there's less time to do what you want, as opposed to everyday life where I actually do have some predictable windows to do what I want to do. But it pisses me off. I've spent like maybe over 2 weeks, I maybe spent 2 hours on this. But at the same time, this project has required a lot of like just thinking on how to solve things. So maybe it ended up being a good thing. I don't know. But that doesn't change how I've been feeling about it. Anyways, so I'm glad to be back to actually finish this. And I finally figured out how, like, if you watched any of the initial videos on this, I had a challenge. Like, I really hate this. The Apple Music. Like, why can't I play Apple Music on, like, if I play music on my computer here, and then I stop listening to music, and then I start playing music on my other device, I get errors on the other device, even though I'm not playing any music there. It's very annoying. One thing is, like, if you're actually playing music at the same time on both devices, that's fine. I understand that shouldn't be allowed, but yeah, anyways. Where was I? Yeah, so I was thinking about, like, when you have commits, and you want to change the contents of the commits. It's not just the commits, right? You don't want to just change the order of the commits. You also have changes within the commits. You might want to move around between the commits. You want to add some commits. You want to remove some commits. Maybe you want to throw away some changes. But that's not all, because some changes depends. Well, first of all, it's not only file changes. You're not just changing text in files. You also have binary files that you change. And on top of that, you don't only have text changes and binary changes. You also have like file operations. You're adding files, you're deleting files, you're renaming files. And when you're deleting a file, you're just deleting a file. But when you're adding a file, you might also have changes related to adding that file. The same for rename. You might not just rename, you might change it after you rename it within the same commit. And then you have changes that overlaps with changes on previous commits, like within the same line range, or overlapping line range. And there's so much complexity to this, and I wanted to give you the sense of full freedom. Like, you can change and move things around however you want, and not like restrict the UX. But at the same time, we have to identify when you're doing something that's invalid, right? So you can't just move. For example, if you're adding a file and you're making some changes to that file, you can't move those changes to a previous commit because the file hasn't been added yet, right? Or if you have a change in one commit that has overlapping line ranges with changes on a previous commit, you can't move that first change to an even earlier commit because it depends on the line changes you made on the in intermediate commit. Like, in all of this, I can talk about this now quite like intuitively, but this was really, really hard to understand. And it's taken me a long time to kind of just build up the mental models of how to do this. So what I ended up doing is, and then finally, like, making a change to, like, a text change to a file. That's something that's quite similar to a binary change. Though a binary change is like a complete change of the file every time. It's not like in between. There's no diff there. It's just that there's like maybe there is a diff under the hood, but you don't actually see the diff. But then you have, what's the relationship between a text change in a file and adding a file in terms of changing the history? Like, how do you represent that? And how do you make it flexible to choose when the file was actually added and when the changes within that file was added or was modified? So what I ended up doing is that I completely flattened the changes. And that means that these commits have some file operations like adding and renaming, and they have some file modifications. But at the end of the day, when I click rebase here, what happens is that it just takes all the file operations and modifications and binary changes and deletions and everything, and it flattens it in an array. So there's a type of change here. So it could be a type of modification, a type of add, it can be a type of delete, or a type of rename. And these are represented as something that happened to a file. So if I were to move this whole file here, it brings along all the changes that happened to that file. But I can also go here and I can, oh, we have an error here. I'm going to fix that. But you can also choose individual changes, right? So if I refresh here, like that's part of the list what just happened now that we need to fix. So if I were to move add file here down to this commit, for example, that's fine, right? So you might add the file down here on the hello commit, but you make the modification on this later commit. That's fine. But you could do the opposite, right? You made a modification before actually adding the file, and that should show an error. So I have a concept for that. So in this flat array, all the changes, they have an index, which reflects when that change happened in the original history. They have a type, as I said, and then they have a reference to the hash they should be applied to, which the original hash, the hash, like the initial hash is the hash from the original commit. And what basically happens when I move the changes here, I'm just changing the hash of the, I'm just changing the hash of the changes. So it's like just deriving from this flat array. And then I have something called dependencies. So as it's building up this flat array, it also identifies for every change, it looks back into previous changes and see if any of them is a dependency, or if the current change has any dependencies to the previous changes. So as an example, and I really like this concept, because what happens here is that when it looks at add file, for example, it looks at this change, and this change happens before the modification, right? It looks at that change, and then it sees that, oh, you have a modification to package.json. That's not a dependency, right? It's a different file. First of all, it's a different file, so it doesn't matter. But then it looks at hello there, and it goes through the previous changes, and then it finds, oh, there's an addition here to this file. That needs to be a dependency of hello there. So if I move this item before add file, it will identify that, oh, in the dependency array of hello there modification, there's an index that is after this specific change. So it means that it's invalidated. And I can do this for everything. I can do that for overlapping changes, and I can do it for deletions. So if there's a deletion, if there's a change and there's a deletion, so the interesting thing about deletion is that a deletion becomes a dependency. It becomes like an opposite dependency, so that the deletion has a dependency to all the changes, right? So if there were made changes to the file, and then you choose to delete it in a certain commit, and then you move that deletion like down to the first commit, for example, you'll have maybe you have some changes on that file still, on intermediate commits. But now, since that deletion has dependencies to these other changes, will identify that's a problem moving that deletion down in front of those changes. Like, so it just works. And the way it presents itself as a user experience now is that it will just create this warning icon that there are some problems. And that could be a different user experience. We could prevent the move and show a message. But what I want to create this feeling of just having full control. And then when you get these warnings, you can hover them and it will explain the exact change that causes like this invalid state of the commit. So I'm really excited about this. And I feel more confident than ever that this is how it should be done. The reason, and it also has this hidden feature, and that is you might have recursive dependencies, which is insane, right? So, do I have an example? So you can, technically, you can modify a file on one commit, then you delete the file on another commit, then you create the file again on a third commit, and then you might modify it on a fourth commit, right? And again, what's going to happen is that the modifications on the fourth commit will have a dependency to the addition on the third commit, right? And then what happens is that the addition on the third commit will have dependency to what will that have a dependency to? Yeah, maybe that should have a dependency to the deletion as well on the second commit. Let's just say that, because this is the thing I'm going to implement now. Is like, how do we build up these dependencies? My point is, when the third addition builds up its dependency array, when we handle the fourth commit with the modifications, it will kind of inherit the dependency array of the addition, right? So even though the last change in the fourth commit only has a dependency to the addition of the file, it won't just point to that addition. It will copy the dependency array of the addition, so that when you try to move that like fourth commit change down to maybe the first commit, it will invalidate all the other changes, because that move is like part of all these, whatever. Hopefully that makes sense. But it's like, it's crazy complex. Just the fact that, like, does it really make sense to have the commits in most recent to like oldest, but then the changes are in oldest to most recent? Like, we have this like very strange relationship with chronological order and commits. So for example, in here we can see is from the latest commit to like the earliest commit. But when you go on GitHub and you create a PR, you'll see the first commit and then the last commit, right? And we don't think about this, but isn't that strange? That suddenly it's different. And then if you rebase, it suddenly becomes the same as on, like, it becomes the oldest to the newest, right? As opposed to the log, which is the newest to the oldest. Like, it's always like different. And I find that funny. Yeah, whatever. So what I thought we could do is actually, do something. So what do we have on our list? Finish showing deletions and rename in tree view. Yeah, so currently I'm only showing additions. There's a problem with additions. It's because of the parser I'm using for the diffs. For some reason, it doesn't identify additions that doesn't have changes. I've added an issue on the repo, also offering my help to fix it. I just have to understand what needs to be fixed, like what's the intention behind the existing logic. But anyways, and then we want to add back the command to show diff of original commits. I already have the logic, so it's very easy to fix. Maybe we should do that first, since it's so easy. Yeah, and then there's an issue where when there's an addition of a file, it doesn't show, like it shows additional lines in the diff for some reason. So as an example, we can see when I click this, it shows like 3 additions there. But if we look at the actual, oh yeah, sorry. If we look at the actual commit, you see there's only 1 line change. So I'm not sure why that happens. And then we need to implement the dependencies where it's basically, we're just going to iterate the previous changes for every change and identify if any of them are actual dependencies. And then if they are, copy the dependency array. Yeah, and then after we have approved a rebase, so what happens when you approve a rebase is that we're just showing, or we should just show it as if it's like the new set of commits, so that you can like have a final validation as like just a list of commits that you can click and you see like the unified, like so you see like if I click a, oh god damn it, if I click a commit, well, I guess you can't see it. Like here you see the actual file above it. So you can click a commit and you get a list of files. You kind of see it as it would look like on GitHub. That's the point. And then you can actually like perform the rebase and push it to remote. Yeah, and then there should be a command to like drop the rebase. This is very simple stuff. And then force pushing with lease, which is basically just verifying that the remote actually, yeah, one thing, ensure we have synced with remote before starting rebase. Yeah, and then even though you validate, approve a rebase, you might want to edit it again before you do the actual final push. And then we should make a copy of the original commits when starting the rebase. So that you can kind of like just reset the view. Do we even need that? I'm not sure if we need that. Because now I think we're actually performing the rebase when we approve the rebase. I don't think we should do that. We should do that as part of actually like pushing it to remote. Okay, cool. So. Add back command to show. Yeah. So let's see. Show diff. I can't remember. Was it on git state? Yeah, here it is. Show commit diff. Let's see. I think we're actually using it here. Let's see. I just need to move my face. Yeah, show commit diff. It's a commit item. Yeah, so I guess we can pass the hash. Oops. String. So that will be hash. Okay, so we can okay, let's pass where was it? Show commit diff. Let's actually have message string and hash string here. So we're not going to use like commit item as the actual thing here. We're just gonna, because that's part of the actual UX. It's not part of the like backend. So just make sure it has what it needs. Oh, so that's in to multi. I think we should move this to utils. And then import star as VSCode from VSCode. Okay. Oh, it needs the URI. I'm not sure what the rename URI is. Is that the new? Yeah, I guess so. Or change dot original URI. So this change. So it takes a file change. Just 2 seconds. I just need to send a message. Let's see. Let's see, so all right. So we have this change thing. Show commit. What? Oh, it was too multi. So we have but could it be change? Like, how does this change look like? We have this git thing. So it has a status. And it's easier to have change of changes. Why is it file change type? Didn't I change that? file change time. I think this should just be change type, whatever. Okay, we need to move those over as well. Come on. I'm not sure how we're gonna, like, if I want to use the actual file change, show commit if I actually want to show the file change, how do I get the file change? And what are these changes? Are they... Oh, resources push. Okay, so we're actually pushing all the changes. Okay, I think we can actually use the, let's see, GitHub. VSCode extension. VSCode repo. It's interesting how they actually remove the... Oh. Yeah, how they're using, like, remove the search, or no, they have search still. Yeah. Extensions, Git. Let's see, where do we have the actual... wait a minute. I forget that we can use VS Code. It's called toMulti. I copied this from the actual... Hello. Oh, you don't have to search the whole thing. Anyways. There we go. Yeah, so this is just a change, and we should be able to just use that. So this is just going to be a change. This is from Git, and then we're gonna do, just gonna do this. Status is also coming from Git. Cool. I think that's fine. So what should happen now is if we go here and I click one of the original commits, we should see the... Yeah, nice. That's working. What was the next thing? Yeah, and then we're going to show deletions and rename in the tree view. But you know, I think I should actually stop streaming. Yeah, I would love to work more on this, but it's really my first work day, so I want to get ahead a bit. But I'm going to continue doing this. We're going to pop off these items, or shift these items off the list every morning until we have something actually running. But it's kind of cool. I feel, as I said, I feel very confident now that we've found the data structure, underlying data structure, to allow moving these things around and very efficiently identify dependencies between the different changes. And we should be able to create a really awesome tool from this. I'm very excited about this. As I said, it's the only thing, I've never built something that's applicable to every single developer in the world. Well, given they use VS Code, it's been like a niche within JavaScript and TypeScript. state management. So yeah, this makes me excited. I had projects like this before, and I think that's maybe something I've learned is like, even though I find state management fun, it's such a niche, and I think I rather want to work on things that's more applicable, more broadly applicable. Yeah, like language agnostic developer experience ideas, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, just a reflection. Anyways, I'll be streaming tomorrow morning as well. So I'll see you then if you're watching. Okay, bye.